It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind, and it either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Tia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
Hi, this is Ian on the eastern shores of England. You better believe it. All around the world we're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles.
The show.
Myself and two other buddies, we just turned 16. Buddy got his first vehicle. It was a little Chevy S10. So you can only imagine three teenage boys strapped up in a S10 driving about 6 hours north. We were heading up to the Boundary Waters. So packed all of our gear, had the canoe strapped to the top, and off we went. And so we spent probably 3 days, maybe 4 days canoeing back, portaging through. Just amazing time. Beautiful wilderness. Night 4 comes around, and we only packed one tent. So there's 3 of us in the single tent. I was closest to the door. I got out of the tent because I had to use the bathroom. It was pretty bright out. I didn't need to bring my flashlight. I don't know if it was a full moon or if it was just super bright, but it was bright enough that I could see. I got out and I didn't stumble too far away from the tent. It's pretty late at night. Get out and start relieving myself on my targeted rock that I was using. And said targeted rock went from on the ground to standing up in a blink of an eye. I mean, this thing was on the ground and up. You couldn't imagine how fast it was up. It didn't seem like it was a person that used his arms and got up, slow movement. This thing went from ground to up in a blink of an eye, made this weird guttural, like disgusted sound as it took a breath out, and turned and took off running into the woods. I have never felt that much panic. Like in my brain, I tried to rationalize what just happened. And I'm like, okay, it's a bear cub. That's a bear cub. Mom's, right around the corner. Mom's coming after me. I booked it back into the tent, got back into my sleeping bag and rolled over my buddies. I don't remember who was in the middle, but now I'm in the middle, and not my most brave moment of pushing a buddy into the doorway and hopefully the line of sight, I guess, if they open the door, But buddy's got all upset with me and, what are you doing? Wake us up. It's late at night. And I'm trying to explain to him that I just peed on a bear cub. And, they're thinking I'm full of it. And I'm in such a panic. And these guys know that I don't panic like that when it comes to being in the woods. It's second nature to me. It's home for me in the woods. That's my calm spot. And one of them flipped the flashlight on and was looking at me, and instantly he knew that I wasn't full of it, that something must have happened, because here I am in a dead panic. Eyes are watering like I'm almost ready to well up and cry. And I don't panic like that. And I told him, I'm like, I peed on a bear cub. I peed on a bear cub because that's the only way that I could rationalize what just happened. It's so hard to rationalize that something went from the ground, stood up, and what stood up was only maybe like 3.5, 4 feet tall and took off running. You know, could it have been a bear cub size? Maybe. I've seen a lot of bear cubs in my day, and you know, bear cubs don't jump up on 2 feet, make a disgusted sound like they just got peed on, and take off running on 2 feet. It just doesn't happen.
And Kevin, welcome back to the show, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know we've been chatting via the phone regarding these recent events. If you would you start from the very beginning and kind of walk us into some of these weird things that have happened to you while hunting?
It's a little nerve-wracking. Not so much the situation. The situation was nerve-wracking, but it's a paradigm change for me. Like, I really thought flesh and blood. So I was with my 17-year-old son, and we were up in the Boundary Waters again. Same gunflint, same as the my first experience back in the late 90s. But this time we were not in an entry point. We were still on the gunflint, not so much into the Boundary Waters. We got up there Friday, and every night that we go up for our annual grouse and fishing trip, we always take a night drive, and we'll go out for 3, 4, 5 hours and just drive into the middle of the night, driving the back roads throughout the gunflint, just to see what we can see. You know, last year we saw some moose and some other stuff, and we were excited, hoping that we would get to see, you know, more wildlife this year. So Friday night we get set up, we go, and we're driving, and we're out on this back road, and off of this back road are many entry points into the Boundary Waters, by permit only. So we're driving, and my son and I are having a really deep philosophical conversation, spiritual conversation. As we're driving, we're coming along, and I'm going to set this up. So on one side of the road is a lot of real thick, heavy marsh. And then on the other side this year, or maybe late last year after I was up there, they decided to clear cut about a 30 to maybe 40 foot strip all along the eastern side of the road. And they put power lines in. So we're driving along, and I've got not HIDs, but LED light bars on the front of my car. So it lights everything up like it's daytime when I'm driving. So we're driving along, and we're kind of coming up to this turn, and on this turn is an embankment on that clear cut side where the telephone poles are. And it probably raises up maybe 20 feet. And from there, it's, you get up on top of the hill, and then the woods start. And we're talking thick, untouched, untamed woods. And as we're driving, again, we're having this deep philosophical, we're paying attention to the road because that's what we're out there to do, but we're also having this conversation. All of a sudden, this rock hits my car. And it, if my windows weren't up, that rock could have came in and just smoked me in the head, and I don't know if I would have survived it. And it put a panic. Like I ducked and almost ducked into my kid's lap as I'm driving because it hit my car so hard. We keep going just to get out of that area, not knowing what's going on. And we get up to where it's about 2 miles up from where we were at is East and West Twin Lakes. Anyone that's familiar with the area is going to know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a boat launch on either lake, either side. I spun around and I faced it back where the rock came from, the direction of travel that we were just coming from. And we stop, and I've got this LED light that connects to the top of one of my DeWalt batteries, and we get out and we're like, okay, what was that? Like, what just happened here? Did you see anybody? Because I saw nobody up there. And my son's like, no, there was nobody there. So we get out and we're looking with the light. My son has the light, and we're looking at the car, trying to figure out, where did it hit my car? And it was right on top of my rear window of my car. So it hit my roof rack basket and it hit my car. But the impact was so great that it actually dented in 2 places into my car. So I've got 2 dents in my car where that rock hit. And as we're standing there, we're looking, and all of a sudden from behind us, the way we were traveling, we start hearing footsteps. Now, there is a little boat at one of the boat launches. So I know that there's a campground about maybe 100, 150 yards down. So I'm like, all right, boat, campground. This campground's a free campground. No electricity, no nothing. I don't see any lights over there, but there's got to be someone there because there's a boat there. So I'm like, all right, this guy's probably wondering what this dude is doing. Stopped right at the boat launch, 10 o'clock at night. Is he stealing my boat? Is he, what is he doing? So I'm expecting that's the footsteps that we hear coming down the dirt road from behind us. So we both spin around to kind of greet the guy. Here we are in the dark. We don't want to seem like we're being weird or suspicious. And as we turn, there's no one there, and the footsteps stop. And it's like, okay, we kind of turn back around. Like, you heard footsteps, right? Yeah, it sounded like someone was walking towards us. Yeah, that's what I heard too. So we go back to looking, and my kid picks up a rock, and he's got this look in his eye, and he's like I am, very analytical. Let's figure this out. But he picks up this rock, and he kind of puts his arm back, and I'm like, don't even do it. You're not going to throw a rock at my car to see if that's what it was. I was like, what did it sound like to you? He goes, it sounded like, a heavy rock hit your car. I'm like, yeah, okay, but you're not throwing a rock at my car. And as we're having this discussion, the footsteps start again from behind us, coming down this dirt road. Now, again, this is still clear cut, even on the east side of the lake, and on the west side is still trees, but boat launch for either side. We can clearly see. So we hear the footsteps start again. He spins around again. I spin around again. Like, okay, we missed this guy. Turn around, and there's no one there, but the footsteps just dead stop. This time I grab the light from my son. I turn it off, and I just stand there. And I've got my thumb on an off switch, and I'm waiting, and the footsteps start again. And the footsteps get closer and closer, and it sounds like it's within 20 yards of us. At this point, I know that the moment I touch this on and off switch, and I light this up, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Whatever's there is going to be in the light. And I flip the light on, and there's nothing there. Footsteps just dead stop. And I look at my son, I'm like, all right, bud, get in the car. We got to go. Like, something's not right here. And this was heavy bipedal. Again, thinking human walking up. But it sounded like a big human walking. And we got in the car, and we're driving back, and this is only a one-way in, one-way out at this point. The road doesn't continue any further ahead of us, or, well, from behind us now. So we got to go back past where this rock was thrown. And we're driving, and we're looking. I'm like, okay, you remember exactly where it happened? He goes, yeah, it was right at the beginning of this turn on this side of the hill. I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I remember as well. And we're driving super slow, and we're having this discussion, like, what throws rocks? Like, we've got 2 options here, Well, we got 3 options. It's either a human, it's a Bigfoot, or it's a ghost. One of the two. I'm not. I'm taking paranormal ghost out of this. So we're down to human or a Bigfoot. It doesn't make sense that a human would be sitting out in the middle of this back dirt road at 10 o'clock at night, just hoping that a car is going to drive by so that they can throw a rock that probably had to be close to a pound, and that's got to be a big person. I don't know if I could throw a rock with accuracy to hit a car traveling down the road in the dark. Or we're left with Bigfoot, and we're having this conversation, and he's like, yeah, he goes, there's nobody out here. He goes, we're 2 miles away from the campground. The likelihood of this guy sitting on a hill in the dark is pretty slim to none just to throw a rock at somebody. So that pretty much wraps up that experience. But that experience really had a paradigm shift for me, because I've had a couple other experiences where I wasn't able to see what it was, but I should have seen what it was. That it was close enough that I should not have missed whatever it was. So last year, my buddy lives kind of southwest of Duluth in that area. The area is very notorious for Bigfoot, Sasquatch encounters, sightings, that type of stuff. Little did we know when he bought the property, but he bought 40 acres of property. He lives up there. It's mainly wooded. Only maybe 5 acres of the land is actually opened up. He's got a little pond on his property, a house, a pole barn, so on and so forth. But the rest of it's all wooded. And it used to be old hippies that owned the house since the 60s until he bought it. They never hunted it. They never maintained the woods. They were never in there. So when he purchased it, we decided we were going to, of course, we're going to deer hunt this. We're going to get off of public land. And this has been about 2 years now, maybe 3 years now. We're like, this is going to be perfect for deer hunting. These deer have no idea what are coming into the woods for them. And so we cut trails for getting 4-wheelers back there, and we cut shooting lanes, and the woods are untamed and they're thick, but you can still relatively see 50 to 75 yards, in any direction, especially when you're up in your deer stand, or when you're down on the ground, you don't have the tree cover, you just have trunks. You can pretty much see through it. Well, last year we're out deer hunting, and it's opening morning of deer season, and I'm sitting in my stand, and I'll set this up. One corner of the property, back corner, is where my son's at. He walks out from the house and gets into his stand. My buddy and I both take our wheelers into the woods. We park in the same spot, and then we kind of separate off. He goes to his deer stand. I go further back into my deer stand. Well, I'm sitting in my deer stand, everything feels pretty normal, comfortable, and sun's up. It's probably 2 hours into legal shooting. And I start hearing somebody on the property line. Now, the property line behind him is 400 acres of privately owned land. His other neighbors one has 40, another one has 40, another has 80. And then there's, thousands of acres of tax forfeit all around there. Well, the people that I'm on the property line at, they don't hunt, and they're never really there. The parents that owned it originally died, and the kids took over. Not to say that they couldn't be out there. So I'm standing there, or I'm in my deer stand, and I'm hearing this walking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's as if someone's on a trail, because they're walking so effortlessly that they can't be walking through the woods. I mean, there's trees falling over and everything. You're going to kind of stumble as you walk through these woods if you're not on a trail. So I text my buddy. I'm like, hey, so-and-so's must be up here. He's like, why? I'm like, well, I keep on hearing them walking back and forth on their trail. And he's like, they're not up here. We know they're not up here. and they don't have trails. I'm like, well, that's BS, because clearly they're on a trail because they're just effortlessly walking through the woods back and forth. They're starting to really piss me off because they've been out there for quite an extended amount of time. He goes, dude, they don't have trails. They're my neighbors. You know, we rarely see them, but I know they don't have trails, and we know that they're not up here. I'm like, well, whatever it is walking back and forth in the woods, and it's really annoying me because that's typically where the deer come from, is that side of me where I typically get my shot. So as the day goes on, the walking kind of stops. I don't hear it anymore. But throughout that day, we're hearing, you know, an owl that doesn't sound like an owl. We're hearing dogs that don't sound like dogs. And we know all the neighbors that have dogs, and we know what their dogs sound like. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe it's the ravens. You know, ravens can mimic animals, but it just doesn't sound like ravens either. Then we start hearing monkeys. And on my last episode on 1093, I explained how I heard what sounded like that samurai chatter. This wasn't that. This legitimately sounded like excited monkeys chattering. And I text my buddy. I'm like, hey, you hearing monkeys? And he's just like, you know, WTF? Yeah, LOL, what's this? I'm like, I don't know. That's a weird sound, dude. And again, even with my experiences, Bigfoot was still the last thing on my brain. You know, that's not where my brain was going. But it started going there once, you know, I'm starting to put the pieces together. I'm like, is this what we're dealing with here? You know, I've, in my other episode where I was talking about where I hunted the public lands, I've never been comfortable in those woods. They've always been uncomfortable to walk out into until I'm up in my deer stand, and then you feel like you're safe because you're right at snack level for them. But needless to say, uncomfortable. But these woods, I've always felt comfortable the last couple of years. Like, I can walk out there and I feel nothing out in these woods. We've had that conversation where it's like, man, I really feel comfortable walking out here. And he's like, yeah, me too. So I'm putting these pieces together, and it's like, is this what we're dealing with here? Are we dealing with Bigfoot? You know, monkeys mimicking, walking smoothly through the woods like they just effortlessly. I'm like, all right, you know, we're getting to the end of the day. It's probably 15 minutes to the end of legal shooting. Like, I'm just going to get down out of my stand. I'm like, I need to get down. I'm going to walk out in the light still while I got some light. So I get down and I get back onto the four-wheeler trail, and I start heading back towards where we park our wheelers. Now, this ground is pretty soft, and a lot of sphagnum moss and real shallow root system. So I'm walking and I'm hearing this footsteps, and they're mimicking my footsteps almost perfectly. I'm like, okay, it's got to be an echo to my foot, you know, my footstep, you know, hitting the roots or something. And so I'm walking and I stop and I'm listening and I turn around and I'm looking to see if anything's there. It sounds like it's 15 yards behind me and 10 feet further into the woods. If there's something there, I'm going to see it. You know, it's close enough that I'm going to see it. And, there's nothing there. So I keep walking, but then the footsteps start again. I'm like, all right. So I pick up my pace and I slam the brakes as fast as I could. And this thing takes probably 2 to 3 extra steps. And I'm instantly spun around. You know, I've got my headlamp on. I'm looking. It's not dark yet, you know, but still, I'm using my headlamp to cut through any darkness that's in the woods. And there's nothing there, Wes. I mean, as close as this was, there's no way I could have missed this. Not a chance that I could have missed, you know, an 8-foot, 10-foot, whatever this, you know, size of this thing is, or even if it's a little one, I'm still not going to miss it. And I'm like, all right, enough's enough. I start high stepping it, get out of get over to where my wheeler's parked and wait for my buddy, and I explain the situation and what it was. And we go back and, talk to my son, explain what was going on. And he's like, yeah, I'm hearing some weird stuff in the woods too. He goes, but I'm not seeing anything, and again, weird that we didn't see any deer. Between the three of us, none of us saw a single deer that whole day. Like, all right, whatever. Next morning, we get out to our stands, exact same situation, same setup. And we're hearing weird, mimicking noises again throughout the day. And we're kind of back and forth, texting back and forth about it. And day's starting to wrap up. I'm like, again, I'm just going to get out of my stand a little early. I get back to the wheeler, and this is probably maybe 20, 25 minutes before legal. I got out a little earlier than I did the night or the evening before. And I'm sitting there just silent and sitting on my wheeler waiting for my buddy to get back so we can go in. And he texts me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm sitting at the wheeler just dead silent. I got out 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. And he's like, you're not in front of me? I'm like, no, I'm at the wheeler, just sitting here dead silent. He goes, you're not walking in front of me, making weird noises. I'm like, no, I'm not, dude. Why would I walk in front of you without letting you know that I'm coming up in front of you? It's a great way to get shot, and, he's like, all right, keep your gun loaded. I'm coming down. I'll meet you there. And he gets back and I'm like, what's up? He goes, dude, there was something walking in front of my deer stand, but I couldn't see it. But it sounded like this raspy breathing, almost raspy canine breathing, but real deep breathing. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's weird. And I kind of joke with him like Bigfoot. And, he knows my experiences. He's heard them all many times, but he's one of those guys that I can tell pretty much anything to and no judgment. And, so we get back in and talking to the son. He's like, yeah, again, just didn't see anything, hearing weird stuff. And, that kind of wraps up that one, but again, 2 different days, you start putting all these pieces together. And this last experience that I had of something walking down the dirt road, not seeing, it really put into perspective what happened last year for me and what happened in another experience a few years back as well. And it's made me real uncomfortable. I was dead set that these things were flesh and blood. No woo, no paranormal. I know that I saw the lights floating and, never even knew that they were 30 feet until a couple years later up in the tree. And it still was not clicking in my brain that there was something paranormal or, is it paranormal or, is it just an ability that they have? But I wasn't placing that until this year.
That monkey sound that you guys heard, did it sound anything like this? What you guys heard that day, was it close to that?
So, yes, it was. But the difference between what I was hearing in that recording sounds a little more aggressive. Like there's an aggression behind it. What we were hearing was less aggressive and more just kind of communication between multiple things. Like it didn't sound like there was as much aggression behind it, more just a line of communication between the two. Or I don't even know if it was 2 or if it was 3. I don't know how many were there, but definitely multiples. And it just didn't have as much aggression. So the couple years back experience, that was the samurai chatter. That sounded like straight up almost it had a Asian, influence or whatever however you want to say that. It almost sounded like it sounded like samurai chatter. This one sounded much more like what you just played there, just less aggressive.
Yeah, it would make sense that it wouldn't be as aggressive. In that recording I just played, that's from Ron Moorhead and the Sierra Sounds. According to Ron, they were fighting over food that they had left out. So I guess you kind of do get that aggressive tone. What do you make of the fact that, like the incident with your son, you're hearing footsteps coming. Prior to that, a rock was thrown. It kind of sounds like Sasquatch behavior, but you turn around and there's nothing there. What do you make of that?
I don't know. Like, I honestly, I honestly don't know. I waited till the sound was within 20 yards of us. There's no way that something could have ducked off the road, could have dropped to the ground. And even if it dropped to the ground, we're still at the same level. I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is, we use such a small amount of our brain. Now, we'd be ignorant to think that a creature like Bigfoot couldn't have, what we'll just say, unlocked an ability in their brain to be able to use different attributes. They have different skills than we have. I almost think that, is it paranormal? I don't know. Is it the brain being unlocked to being able to cloak? And I hate that word because it just, again, I'm fighting with my own internal demons here still because it's so fresh. I still want them to just be flesh and blood. I don't want them to have some ability that they can disappear. I love the woods. I spend so much time in the woods. I don't want this thing that's, 8 to 10 feet tall to be able to just be standing 10 feet away from me. That's nerve wracking. I don't know what to make of it, Wes.
Yeah, it's really hard to know what to make of it. And you hear many people over the years, I've talked to many, many people and had them on the show. And, a lot of times they're experienced hunters, guys like yourself, Kevin. And they'll say, when I walked out of the woods, this thing was pacing me step for step. And I would stop, it would stop. I would start walking, it would start walking. And a lot of people, I picked up on this like many years ago. They'll say, God, it was, it was right there, like 10 feet away. And I realize there's brush and stuff, but I should have seen this thing and there was nothing there. And I've heard the argument before, and I like the way you think about, well, maybe Sasquatch has, abilities that we just don't know about. I can get on board with that if people could provide me another example where that has happened. Give me another primate where that's happened or some of this weird stuff goes on. But there isn't one. And it really is hard to know what to make of it. It's like this thing should be right there and it's not. You can hear it, but you can't see it. It's strange.
It is very bizarre. Yeah, I try to be analytical about how I'm thinking of stuff, and I try not to jump straight to paranormal. I've dealt with the paranormal my entire life, but this is different. This does not, it doesn't feel the same, but unlocking the brain. Yeah, there is nowhere else in history that we know of any living or extinct creature that can all of a sudden just be there and not be there. They nothing has been able to just disappear.
Yeah, there's so many weird things with Sasquatch. I remember when people would tell me their eyes would light up and I'd be like, that's eye shine. they're like, no, these eyes were glowing. And I would kind of bite my tongue, but deep down I was like, it's eye shine. They don't know what they're talking about. Very smug and arrogant, like I know everything. And I'm telling you, after you talk to eyewitnesses, there's so many weird. It's like the whole eye glowing thing. People try and go, well, they might have some ability to. Their eyes are glowing. What are you talking about? Special ability or vanishing or all this weird stuff you hear with these creatures. You don't hear with normal animals. Like when they found the mountain gorillas, there were stories about these man-like creatures that would walk on all fours and up on two legs. And but if you listen to the accounts, at no point is there anything paranormal in any of their accounts. We know they're talking about, gorillas now, but even back then it sounded like an animal. At no point was someone like, and then it vanished. You won't find it. But with Sasquatch, even going back to the Native Americans, they have a lot of weird things in their oral tradition regarding Sasquatch that makes you think it's not normal. I know that you've dealt with the paranormal and we didn't really go into it last time. Tell me, and we were talking about it last night. I was hoping you'd share it. Tell us a little bit about your paranormal experiences.
Yeah. So now, again, this paradigm shift in my brain, it brings back another possible encounter. I can't say again that this was Bigfoot because I didn't see it, but let me walk you into it. Different buddy owned land, about 10 acres of land, kind of north central Minnesota. And same buddy that I hunt with all the time. This is coming into deer season, probably, I don't know, at least 10 years ago now, at least 10 years. We're going to go up to my buddy's house. Him and his wife are both in the Air Force, and they were both about to be deployed for their tour. He asked if, my buddy and I could watch his house, come up and just check on it, make sure everything's good to go while he's on tour. So, of course, we'll watch it. We're up there, we're coming up, and we're throwing feeders out during, the fall time and getting it ready to go, early fall. Take them down when we need to take them down, get everything cleaned up. Now, it was either a Wednesday or Thursday. I'm guessing on a Thursday, if my memory's correct, on a Thursday. I get up to his house. So now his property, he's in a very rural area. A lot of farm fields, a lot of, big patches of woods throughout this area. When you get up to his house, you drive into his dirt road, or dirt driveway. And to your left, as you're driving in, is the house. To your right, immediately, is old school 2-story barn. Upstairs was set up for hayloft. Then he had a silo on the backside, and then pretty much from the barn all the way to the back of the 10 acres is horse pasture. Behind the horse pasture, at the back end of the horse pasture, is another pole barn that's opened up so the horses can come in, get out of the elements. Still fenced off, so about a third of that back barn is open to the horses. And then the fence, on the other side of the fencing is where, all the hay and horse manure, all that was over there. Behind that pole barn is an old foundation for an old farmhouse that used to be there. Now, my buddy's house was originally built early 1900s. Then it had an add-on built on. So you'd walk in the front door, you'd come into the mudroom, and there'd be a second door to enter into the house. So to the left is the living room and a little back room off on the back corner. Right when you're first walking in is the newer addition to the house, where it's not a living room, but a dining room, and then stairs that go down into the basement. Basement's still old school basement, dirt floor for the most part. There's a little slab of concrete down there, but the rest of it's dirt floor. Then you go up 2 steps to the right from the dining room and you go into the kitchen and the bathroom. So now that we got that layout, I get up there Thursday, getting everything set up. I'm ready to rock and roll. My buddy is going to come up on Friday. He'll be up there midday Friday. So I'm laying down on the couch. I've never felt comfortable in this house. Let's go back even further. So you and I kind of talked about it where I didn't realize that Sasquatch Chronicles, that you were into paranormal. So the last time that I was on, I was only probably maybe episode 40 into your show, your podcast. So I didn't know that, where it had evolved to. When I was 3 months old, we just got home. I was born in California out in the mountains, and we lived on a cattle ranch. So mom's 19 years old. She's got a 3-month-old new baby. We just get back from grocery shopping. Mom puts me into my room. I'm in my bassinet. She's putting away groceries. And in the middle of the groceries, she gets this, I don't know if it's mother's intuition. She said that a voice told her to go check on me now, is what she said. The voice said, go check on Kevin now. And she listened, and she went back in, and she found me beyond the blue and purple stage and pretty much gray. I was essentially dead. And being raised on a ranch, my mom has had lots of newborn puppies, lots of newborn kittens, straight, the wild kittens. And she did what you would do to try to revive a puppy or a kitten. And she sternum rubbed me, and she kept going and going and going, trying to get my heart to go and to get me breathing. And thankfully she did. Well, it happened a second time when I was maybe 5 months old, almost 6 months old. They ended up finding out that I had sleep apnea. But if my mom hadn't listened to that, I wouldn't be here to tell these stories. I would never have experienced what I've experienced. My personal opinion is when you have that close of a death experience, you don't fully come back. I don't believe that you come back 100%. I think a part of you is left on that other side. And I say that because my entire life, I've seen ghosts. I've been able to, interact with them to an extent. So let's jump back. We're getting back to my buddy's house. It's coming nighttime. I've never felt comfortable in this house. This house has always felt odd to me. Like there's, someone else is there that's not there. So I'm laying on the couch. I'm like, I'm not going to sleep upstairs. I just don't feel comfortable. I'm going to sleep on the couch downstairs, watching TV. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to bed. Turn the TV off, and I'm laying on the couch. And from inside the kitchen, I hear bang, 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 3 bangs. And it's from that direction. I'm like, oh, okay, animal in the house. So I get up and I'm walk over there and get into the kitchen, and I'm looking. I'm like, I don't see anything. All right. I go back, lay down. Well, a few minutes later, bang, 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 real heavy, loud bangs. And these are heavy, heavy, loud bangs. So I'm like, okay, there is an animal in this house. So I go into the kitchen, and I'm going through every cupboard. I go through everything. There's nothing in the house. Okay, I'm, something's going on here. So I kind of go down those 2 steps into the dining room area, but I don't leave the entry to the kitchen. I keep my arm wrapped around onto the light switch. I'm like, is this going to happen again? I'm going to be right here. I'm going to see right where this thing's doing it. I'm going to see whatever's moving. And sure enough, bang, bang, bang. I'm like, oh, I flip the light on and I jump in there and I'm looking and I'm seeing nothing. Again, go through everything. Nothing. I go downstairs into the basement, which is creepy on its own because it's an old school basement. They're all creepy. Nothing. I'm like, okay, so it's not coming from below either. I go out, and my buddy's got a lot of like feral barn cats and that type of stuff. I'm like, all right, I know that you guys hunt for a living. He gives you a little bit of food, but for the most part, you hunt for a living. So I grabbed one of them, and I got to say, I was expressly told, do not bring the cats in, because he knows I love animals. I'm like, I don't care. You know, if there's an animal in here, it needs to get out. You know, this barn cat's going to find it and he'll chase it down. So I bring the barn cat in, I put him in the house. I go lay down on the couch, and I don't know why I turned all the lights off. Again, this whole time, I would turn the lights off or turn them on to look, but then I would turn them off again. Don't ask me. I don't know. But I'm laying there and I'm just waiting to see if it happens again. And sure enough, I'm hearing the cat walking around on the hardwood floor. He's got pine floors, pine walls, pine ceiling. Everything's pine inside the house. At least the living room floor, the walls on the floor in the house. So I can hear the cat walking around. And all of a sudden the bang, bang, bang happens. And this cat, I hear him just tear right up through the house, jumps up on the couch, goes underneath the blankets to me. These cats they're friendly, but they're not snuggly cats by any means. This cat gets underneath the blanket and he's curled up next to me and he's just shivering, just absolutely terrified. But from the kitchen, I hear bipedal walking. And this isn't like heavy walking, but bipedal walking, and less walking, more running. But it sounds like it has either really long nails or claws or something that's clicking on the wood floor as it runs from the kitchen through the dining room into the living room where I'm at, runs right past me and goes into this back room that's connected to the living room. I'm like, oh, I got you. There's one way in and one way out. You're not getting away from me. Whatever this is not getting away from me. And I go and get in there and I turn the lights on and I'm looking, and it's a small, maybe 10 by 10 room. It's not big. And he's got some pictures leaning up against the wall that he hadn't hung yet, but there's nothing in there. I'm like, oh boy. Oh, here we go. You know, I wear glasses or contacts. I still had my contacts in, and I was just like, I'm just going to sleep in them. Like, you know what? I'm going to go out and get my glasses, take my contacts out, get my glasses. So I grab my pistol, I grab my flashlight. I'm on edge at this point, and I go out the side door. That's kind of the most front door. It probably was the original front door to the house that's closest to the driveway and the dirt road that he lives off of. And behind his house is probably a strip of like 30 yards of woods deep and run the length of his house and probably another 30 yards further past his house towards the back of the 10 acres. And then on the backside of that is a pretty substantial size. It's not hay, but it's not necessarily tall grass either. It's kind of, I don't know what it was, to be honest with you. Beyond that is another set of trees, and then further down is a neighbor. So I go out this side door, and I'm walking, and I get down the steps off the stoop, and from my right is the woods, and I hear this like like almost like someone that's been smoking their entire life, or someone that's got a huge set of lungs coughing. And I instantly spin, and I've got my pistol drawn, I've got my flashlight on. These woods there's old growth woods, big trees, but just grass in between them. These trees aren't big enough for something to really hide behind unless it's a smaller human, you know. And so I'm like, okay, you know, was there some random person out here banging on the house, and that's what I was hearing? And I'm walking towards the sound, and I'm, you know, calling out, see if someone's going to respond. No one responds, and I keep walking, and something huge and bipedal takes off running through the woods. I go along the wood line out to the dirt road that he lives off of, and I'm running, shining into the woods. I can hear this thing running through the woods, but I can't see it. this thing sounds large. And we get beyond the woods to that grass field, and the grass is only maybe 2.5 feet tall. It's not, it's tall grass or tall, whatever it is. And I can see the grass splitting, but I can't see whatever this is running. And it's huge and it's bipedal. And I'm running down the road, middle of the night. I don't even remember how I was dressed, but I wasn't dressed for, November weather. And I realized that now we're almost past this grass field and almost to the woods again. And I'm a substantial ways away from his house. And I'm like, I feel like I'm getting lured away from the house. And I stop and I go back. I get back to my truck and I get my glasses out, get my glasses on, take my contacts out, and I go back in, and nothing happens from there. It was absolutely quiet the rest of the night. Next morning, I get up and doing my thing, and I'm kind of looking around just to see if I'm seeing anything out of place. Am I missing something here? What am I missing here? And nothing's out of place. I call my buddy that's coming up, and I'm like, hey, how far out are you? He's like, probably about an hour, maybe a little bit more out. All right. Well, I've got some stuff to tell you. He goes, all right, we'll talk when I get there. Yep. I'm going to run in and grab some steaks from the grocery store, and I'll meet you back here. So I go into town. I end up beating him back to the house, and I'm pull into the driveway, and I back up to the barn. So I'm facing the house. And I'm sitting there just kind of relaxing. And in the second story window, the lamp turns on. And this is my buddy that owns the house's bedroom. Then I see a silhouette of a person come up to the window and standing in the window. And I'm like, someone broke into his house while I was here. There's someone standing right there. I can't tell if they're looking out at me or if their backs to me, but I can see the perfect silhouette of the person standing there. And I call my buddy. I'm like, hey, someone's in the house right now. They're upstairs. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I watched the lamp turn on. I can see the person standing in the window right now. He's like, you serious? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, how far? He's like, I'm probably 15 minutes. I'm like, all right, I'm going to wait here and I'm going to watch the entries to the house. That way this person's not getting out. And if they get out, I'll see them coming out. So he gets there. I'm like, yep, no one's come out of the house. All right. So we both go in the front entryway. We go through the mudroom. We clear the first floor. One goes down, clears the basement, as I can't remember if I was the one down in the basement or if it was my buddy. And they're like, all right, still upstairs. We go upstairs, and pretty steep, old school, flight of stairs where you go up and there's a landing, and then there's 2 bedrooms to your right, 1 bedroom to your left. So we clear the left. We go to the right. We clear the 1 room on the right. No one's there. No one's in either of these rooms that we're in. All right. Well, it's go time. We know where this person's at. They haven't come out of our buddy's bedroom. They're still in the bedroom. It's go time. We're going to confront this person. We get in expecting full on that we're going to be going into a fight here. And there's no one there. There was nobody in that house at all. No way for anyone to escape out of that house because I watched everything, but no one was there. And I filled him in on what happened the night before, and he's weirded out. And that night we're both like, okay, we're not sleeping upstairs. So I was already on the couch, so I'm staying on the couch. You can have the recliner. So we're both, big grown men sleeping downstairs because we don't want to deal with whatever's in here upstairs. And that night it sounded like furniture moving around and things shuffling. And he's like, why is it you? It's always you. He goes, I never deal with this unless I'm with you. I'm like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I had my suspicions of what it was, and exactly what I explained about not the whole part of you coming back after, near-death experience. So I get back to work, and I've got an employee. She's a pretty good friend of mine as well. She's very big into the paranormal. She's got her own paranormal investigation group, and she's gone all around the U.S. doing investigations and blah blah blah. This is a gal that I worked with, and she's like, "Do you think you'd be interested in or be open to us doing an investigation there?" I'm like, "Maybe I could ask them." I was like, "I definitely want to be there." She's like, "Absolutely, I want you there." I'm like, "Okay, let me ask him." And my buddy was perfectly okay with it. He's like, "Sure." And I'm like, "Have you ever had any experiences in the house?" He's like, "No." He goes, "I've never really dealt with anything there." I'm like, "All right, well, here's what's going on, and we're going to set up a date for us to go up there." He's like, "That's fine. Yeah. Just let me know how it goes." So my friend that I work with, she doesn't have any, extra abilities, anything along them lines. She's just very open to the paranormal. She brings a so-called psychic medium. That's who she brings. So it's her, another gal, and then my buddy that I was up there with, he came along as well. So there's 4 of us up there. And we get into this, I've always felt like I've had, a connection, and I've always felt like there has been multiple things with me. 3 things. I think I know what 2 of them are, but I've never been able to figure out what the 3rd one was. So they'll come into play in a little bit here. We kind of do the, not EVP. We did end up doing some EVP stuff, but whatever you call it, where you're walking around with a little checking out for the electrical, spikes or any of that stuff. Yep, we got our hotspots of where there's electrical power coming in and, that type of stuff. Not really getting much, and we're starting moving on to the EVP side of things, and we're getting through, and we go down to the basement, and we're standing around, and again, this is the first time I'd ever done anything that was like this, and definitely the first time for my buddy. And we get down into the basement, we go into the dirt portion of the basement, and we're standing around in a circle, and we're asking questions. And, the only thing that we audibly heard was someone did respond, "No." And it was a clear male voice, "No." And the medium gal, keep feeling like there's a woman up in the kitchen. She's standing at the sink. And I'm like, it's weird because I felt like something was in the kitchen when we were in there earlier, but there was nothing to back that up. It's just a feeling. So we go back upstairs and decide to go to the upper portion of the house. And she's like, the medium gal's like, I'm picking up this weird thing. And here I've got this feeling, I've got a really clear as day feeling. And I pull my friend to the side, my coworker to the side. And I'm like, "Hey, I want to tell you what I'm experiencing. And then whatever she's experienced, she'll say in a second here." So we walked well away so that, no one could hear us talking. I whisper directly into my friend's ear. I'm like, "I feel like I'm suffocating. I feel like there's someone in the closet and suffocating." And she's like, "Oh, that's weird." Okay. So we walk back in and we ask what the medium gal's, picking up. And she's like, "I can't breathe. I feel like I have COPD or there's something lung related where I can't breathe." And I look at my friend. I'm like, "Mm-hmm. All right. So that drives pretty close." So we wrap up the house and we go out to the barn. And I've never been comfortable in this barn. I can go downstairs or into the first floor of this barn, and it's old school barn where it's still got the, the animal waste trough that leads outside, and still got the, kennels and corrals for the animals. And then it's a single straight up steel ladder that goes up to the upstairs where the hayloft is. And my coworker friend, she's like, "I'm going to go upstairs." I'm like, "You do you. I'm not going up there." And she goes up and she's like, Kevin, come on, just come up. Just come up. I'm like, no, I'm good. Staying right here. Not comfortable. This whole time I've got a camera, a digital camera around my neck, and I bought one of those real nice plush, neck straps. So I've got it hanging around my neck. I'm like, and she's like, Kevin, just come up here. I'm like, all right. I start getting up the ladder, and I'm about halfway up the ladder. And she's already up there, but she's on the far side of the wall, away from me. And from my direct right, something takes off running. It runs straight at me, but passes me. Now, there's nothing up there. He doesn't utilize this portion of the barn. So it's all, feathers from pigeons and pigeon poo, and it's pretty nasty up there. But whatever was physical enough to pick up the feathers, like as it ran past, I felt the wind go past me, and the feathers are blowing up. And again, Wes, not my proudest moment, but I screamed like a little girl. I did. I screamed like a little girl, but I had enough poise to grab my camera and click 2 pictures. And up on the front facing of the barn is where the hay bales would have been shot up into or thrown up into the hayloft. So they're kind of off their hinges. So there's gaps between the framing and the doors. Well, one of my pictures has a single red eye looking through that gap back. Now, my friend also took photos. She doesn't have that. And there's no pigeons. There's no birds to be seen up there. So what's the red eye? I don't know. We get out of the barn. And we kind of keep moving on, and I'm trying to recover from this because I'm still terrified. I didn't know that I could make that noise. Like, that was the highest pitched scream a man could ever make. And so I'm trying to recoup myself. We're like, all right, let's go through the horse pasture and go back to the horse barn in the far back. So we go back there, and again, I'm listening to my gut. I'm like, we're staying in the horse pasture side of the barn. I'm like, they're over on the other side of the fencing in the other portion of the barn. And I'm like, no. It's just, I didn't listen to my gut last time, and I'm just not feeling comfortable about going over there. So I never crossed the fence. We get done back there, don't really pick up anything back there. And we go back and we kind of circle around, and we're going through the tall grass backside of the barn to where that old house foundation is. And we're standing around, we're talking. I realize I don't have my camera. Like, where's my camera? I know I had it in the horse barn, but I don't have it now. And I'm like, all right. So we all 4 of us turn around, and we're walking back towards the horse barn, seeing if we can find my camera. We get back into the horse barn, and we're looking. One of them spots my camera on top of like that 10-foot pile of horse manure and hay. Now, I never crossed that fence. There's no way for my camera to have gotten off of me, cross that fence, and definitely not climbing the horse pile of manure to put my camera up on top. But here I am having to cross the fence that I don't want to be at and climb the pile of horse poo to get my camera. I can't explain that. Like, I know they didn't, pick up my camera that somehow got off my shoulders from around my neck to play a prank on me to put my expensive digital camera on top of horse poop. Like, I don't know what happened there. Don't know how that happened. So I get my camera, we go back into the house, and we're sitting in the living room. 3 of us are sitting on the couch. My friend it was myself on the far left, my friend that I hunt with, and then my coworker friend. So my friend that I hung with is in the middle. My coworker friend is to the further side of the couch, far right side of the couch. Medium gal is sitting on the recliner. And my friend's like, all right, let's break out the dowsing rods. I'm like, oh, cool. I've heard about these. I've never seen them in action other than in, Facebook videos or YouTube videos or whatever. So I'm intently watching, and she's, spread out wide for yes and cross for no. And I'm watching her, and I'm trying to, gauge is she moving her hands. Again, I'm very analytical, and I can tell my buddy's doing the same thing. Like, he's experiencing all this throughout the night, and he's never had experiences like that. And so he's very analytical as I am. And we're watching, and she's asking and getting, some stuff, but nothing really definitive, nothing like that. And my buddy's like, hey, can I try? She's like, yeah. She hands him the dowsing rods, and he's doing the sway with his wrists and moving them back and forth and making them cross and doing everything. She's like, no, you got to hold your hands extremely still. So dowsing rods are maybe 18 inches long, and then it's got about a 4-inch, enough to fit into your fist, rod that goes down. So it's an L shape, essentially, with tubes that go down the bottom portion that you hold onto your hand. So the dowsing rods can swing freely. So he starts doing it, and, he's holding his hands steady and start asking questions. And again, wide for yes and cross for no, and stuff starts answering. And he's like, holy hell, you can actually feel the rods pulling in your hands. He's like, there's something to this. And he gets through his stuff, and I'm like, all right, let me try. I want to try. And we're asking questions, same setup, wide for yes, cross for no. And my coworker friend, asks a question. Do you see Kevin differently than you see the rest of us? And instantly, bam, goes wide for yes. And like, whoa, there is something to this, like, I'm not moving, and I felt them pull apart. I'm like, so I ask, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. I've always felt there was 3 things around me. For some reason, 3 things. I think I know what the 2 are, but I never knew what the third one was. And I'm like, Dad, is that you? My dad's passed away years ago. And no. Instantly answers no. I'm like, Jeff, is it you? One of my best friends was killed on his motorcycle. Murdered by a drunk driver. And he died. And I so happened to be there because the position I was in for security, I had a police radio this day, and I end up hearing his call come out, and I end up being the one to find out that it was him, and I had to go get his dad. Long story, sad story. It answers no. I'm trying to think. I'm like, who else? The only real positive male role model in my life was my grandfather that I grew up with at a young age out in California on the cattle ranch. My papa, is that you? By this point, you'd seem like you wouldn't take much energy out of you holding these very, very light dowsing rods, but I'm getting drained. I'm just absolutely drained, and it answers yes. But it doesn't just answer yes. The dowsing rods split wide open. One goes to one shoulder, one goes to the other shoulder on my arms. And I can feel them pressing in on my arms firmly, like it's hugging me. And I broke down in tears. Wes, I'm not an emotional guy. I'm trying, just telling this story. I'm trying not to tear up and cry here. It was as if he was hugging me. And it was the most love I have felt in my life. It was the most emotional experience of my life of pure love. I can't even explain it. Like, yeah, again, I'm trying not to cry here. Yeah, I mean, my grandfather came through on these dowsing rods and hugged me from the afterlife. And that was almost another paradigm shift. Like, okay, everything I've experienced in my life is real. There is an afterlife. There is, whatever this is after here, these are all real things. Like, it just put it all into perspective. And yeah. So I mean, so we go back to the paranormal, dealing with all that, but we go back to whatever was in those woods, on my original experience of that property. What was running through the woods? Why could I not see this thing running through the woods and then into an open grass field, seeing the grass move, hearing it running, but not seeing it?
Yeah, I can tell it affected you. If I were in your shoes, I would probably feel the same way. But I also think how sad, just to be kind of roaming the earth. When you think your grandfather, being such a good man, would go with God and not kind of just roam the earth. And it's a very sincere question, and I ask it in sincerity, so please take it that way.
No, I fully 100% understand what you're saying, and I don't take it in any wrong way. I have felt pure evil. Like, I have experienced pure evil. I've experienced the benign, almost as if it's just replaying itself. I've experienced the intelligence. There was no evil to this. There was no benign to this. I honestly, none of us know what the afterlife is going to hold for us. We have no idea. So I don't know if it's one of those ones that you can come and go. Like, you're not just stuck here. Like, he's not just stuck at my side wherever I go. He's there. Or can you call your loved ones back and they're able to make that presence known? I would like to think that he's not just stuck here. Like, he's wherever he's at, he's happy, he's riding his horses, and he's living his good cowboy life. That's what I want to believe. He's waiting for us on the other side. I don't think that he's just stuck with me. I think it's a call, and they can answer the call.
I understand the way, Phil, for sure. You had mentioned your friend's home. There was nothing going on there before, at least what you knew of?
No. So, like, when I asked him, like, before doing this quote unquote investigation, which it sounds more like poking the beehive now that I'm older. No, his simple answer was no. I'd never really experienced. He's heard things in the house, but nothing definitive. There was nothing that he could say that was paranormal.
Yeah, it's just really weird for it to just kind of show up like that. And I know this was your only experience in that home, but is there another account that you want to share with us? Maybe where you actually saw like an apparition or something like that?
Sure. I got one that I nicknamed him Muddy Bottoms, kind of an inside joke, because, again, I'm a cat fisherman. Different buddy, total different buddy of mine. Actually, the same buddy that we saw. So, funny enough, this plays in. I didn't even put two and two together. The same buddy that I saw my Bigfoot experience. We were in a Twin Cities lake, and we were doing some nighttime fishing. And this has got a walking path around it. It's downtown Minneapolis. There's a band shell right there for outdoor concerts and all sorts of stuff. And we're out in our canoe, and we're canoeing along. And I'll tell you what, as much as I want to say I'm a good fisherman, I wasn't catching anything that night. And we're only maybe 30 feet off the shore. And it's maybe a real gradual slope down to the lake and then the walking. So you can see the walking path clearly. Well, we're paddling along and all of a sudden this old hobo looking guy is right there. And I mean, this dude looked ancient and dirty, and he looked like he'd been put through the ringer. He's like, "You catching anything?" "No, not catching anything. We're not getting much here." And he's like, "Oh, well, if you go down right about over here," and he's pointing down the lake, he goes, "They're biting right there. That's where they're biting." And we kind of looked over to where he was pointing, looked back, and he's nowhere to be seen. Can't get away. I mean, again, this dude looked like he had both feet in the grave and super slow. But even if he was an Olympic sprinter, he could not have got out of our eyesight. You could see everything from one side of the lake to the other side of the lake. And he just disappeared. Never saw him again.
That's creepy. That's really creepy. I'll share with you this. It was kind of a weird paradigm shift for me. And I've told this story before, but I've never told the whole story. But I'll share with you what happened. Some time had passed after mine and Woody's encounter, and I go over to his home. And the minute I walked into that place, I felt like I was being watched. Well, it was a little more than that, but I felt dread. I felt like I was in danger. The feeling of being watched, it was like something was 2 inches from my face, and you could just feel like the anger coming off of it. I mean, whatever it was, it hated my guts. And there's no doubt in my mind, if it could have killed me, it would have. And no matter where I went in the home, I had this feeling, and it was creeping me out. And I ended up leaving. Now, I didn't tell Woody what had happened because what am I going to say? I felt scared, but I didn't see anything. 2 weeks goes by. I go back over there and knock on the door. Woody answers the door, and he's pale. I mean, he's completely pale white, and he looks terrified. And Woody doesn't generally get terrified. I don't think I've ever really, maybe besides our encounter, I don't know that I've ever seen him terrified. He looked terrified. And I knew something was wrong right away. I was like, what's wrong? What happened? He goes, "I got to show you something." So we walk out to his backyard, and along his fence, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs to me. I mean, it didn't, I don't know how else to put it. It looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs to me. Very, and not simple. They're very complex. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized this wasn't cut in with a knife. This looks like it was cut with a freaking laser. There's no way he did this. But just in case, I looked over at him. I was like, "Are you screwing with me?" And his eyes were just big as saucers. And he goes, "No, I got to show you something else." And we go into his garage. In his garage, in the sheetrock, is those same freaking Egyptian hieroglyphs, very close to what's on the fence. Again, they weren't cut in with a knife. They looked like it had been cut in with a freaking laser. I remember just looking at it. I was like, "Well, what is this? I don't understand what you're showing me. Like, what's going on here?" He proceeds to tell me that, and all of this happened before he knew what his girlfriend was doing at the time, but she had gotten into witchcraft and that sort of thing. Wiccan, I think it is. She was like casting spells, and I don't know. I don't think she knew what she was doing. But Woody proceeds to tell me 2 nights before, he's laying in bed next to his girlfriend, and it was like 1,000-pound man climbed on top of him. He couldn't move. He couldn't get up, and it started choking him. The weird part about it was he told me it growled in his ear. Now, backing up for a moment, the night of our encounter, as we were driving up to that road that Woody wanted to put in 4-wheel drive and go down, the feeling was very similar I had before we ever saw anything of that fear, dread, eyes are on me. I'd like to say it's like the feeling of being watched, but it's a little bit more than that. I had the same feeling I had in his home is the same feeling I had that night. Now, I hadn't told Woody any of this. When that creature came up behind the car and had growled at us several times, it's very hard to articulate to people how a growl will terrify you. And I remember afterwards, Woody and I were talking, and both of us made the same comment, like, it'd be like if a demon was on your shoulder growling in your ear. That's kind of how it felt. And now I've never heard a demon growl, but if I had to like illustrate the point, that's what I would say. When we left that night, I was asking Woody, what were those things? What is it? What, keep in mind, Woody's an atheist. He doesn't believe in any of this stuff. He told me that night those were demons. Now, I disagreed with him because we didn't see ghosts. They were flesh and blood. I was shocked he said that. Fast forward back to his home. This 1,000-pound man or whatever it is climbs on top of him, holds him down. He can't get up, and it started choking him. And he told me he thought he was going to die. And it growled in his ear. And he looked at me and goes, Wes, that growl is identical to what we heard that night. Identical. But whatever it is, eventually lets him go. He gets up, he runs out of the room, he's in the living room, and he's in shock. He doesn't know, he's like, what the hell is going on here? About that time, her 16-year-old daughter came out, white as a ghost. Woody asked her, what's wrong? She proceeds to tell him the exact same thing that just happened to him, word for word. He goes, Wes, I was leaving the house one day, and Woody's very anal about his home. His home is like spotless. Everything's in its little place, and if you move anything, he has a little tantrum, and it's annoying as hell, but I will say Woody he keeps his place spotless. He goes, Wes, my girlfriend and her daughter were in the car in the garage. From the kitchen, I walk out to the garage. He goes, I literally walked out the door and thought, oh, I forgot my wallet. He turns around and goes back. He goes, it couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 seconds. He goes, it was probably shorter than that. Walks back into the home. The place is trashed. There's dishes broken everywhere, thrown everywhere. Every cupboard door is open. Trash strewn throughout the whole house. Furniture tipped over. And we're talking seconds. And the whole place is trashed. And they had someone come in and I guess bless the house and whatever it was went away. But I tell you this, when he looked at me and said that growl was identical, and I later told him about when I walked into that home, that feeling was very similar to the night of our encounter. It's something that stuck with me. And take it as you will. I'm not saying one thing or another. I'm just saying it was weird. The feeling was very similar. And I asked you before on the show, what do you think Sasquatch is? What's your take now?
I don't know. I honestly, I want it to be flesh and blood, just a dirty wood ape. That's what I want. What my gut is telling me is that that's not the case. What you experienced could not just be an animal. It has other attributes that it can do. There's got to be a paranormal connect, or a paranormal aspect to this thing. That it can't just disappear. and just reappear and do the things that I've heard on your show and other shows do. Like, I don't know. Simple answer is I don't even know. Like, I was pretty dead set that it was an animal. Like, you were gonna hard time proving me otherwise. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to know.
Yeah, I'm with you, everyone. Remember, if you've had an